welcome back to the Lounge Podcast, where we keep it sassy
and serious.
We are back with another episode, and we got some good things to say this week. I'm excited.
Yes, let us know in the comments if you have any questions you would like for us to discuss on the podcast. And just a disclaimer, these are our own opinions.
Yes, so we are going to go ahead and dive right into our hot topic, and I do also want to apologize in advance because this could be a bit of a triggering conversation for some of you guys, but we're going to be talking about ICE killings this week for our hot topic. Take us away, Jazz.
Yes, so about 3 people died by the hands of ICE in the last 3-4 months. The first one was Renee Good, then there was Alex Perletti, and then there was Keith Porter. Keith Porter, he is an African-American man. He lived and died in LA. And then Renee and Alex both died in Minneapolis. And for for Keith Porter, he died because he was shooting off his gun because it was New Year's. It turned into midnight at New Year's. And I know a lot of people who do that, even by me. And I feel like it's just a thing they do. Not saying it's right, but I promise every New Year's I hear a gun popping off. And according to the off-duty ICE agent, he said that Keith pointed a gun at him, and that's why he shot him. Obviously, we don't know exactly what happened because the other person died, Keith, and then the ICE agent, he's still alive, and he's saying that. And Renee Good, there was a video of it, and from my eyes, she obviously had a car, but she turned it the other way. Car, truck, but she turned it the other way and was not trying to hit the ICE agent. But either way, she ended up getting shot 3 times, and I know for sure she got shot in the face. And then for Alex, he had a gun on him, and they removed the gun, and then they shot him 10 times. So all these ICE agents, they suck in my book.
Yeah, I think that the ICE killings, it's really sad because it's something that we've been dealing with for years. It's like the police brutality, but times 10.
Yes.
Because it seems like they're getting more passes for very minuscule things as a reason to shoot or to detain or whatever the case may be. And I personally think that that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the way you do things, and we definitely don't think they're going about it the right way. And like Lady Kai was saying with the whole police, we basically think they're very similar. Police, ICE, they have a lot of the same tactics they use. I feel like for us being African American, we've had to deal with killings by the police for the longest time. And now that it's happening to other races in the forefront of it being on video, they're like, oh, this is really bad now. And obviously for us, it's been bad. We've been getting checked out by the police. And not saying every single shooting done by the police, killing a black man, is bad. But in certain instances, it's like, dang, that person actually did not have to die. And 9 times out of 10, it's just not a good time. Not saying they just have to die is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. No one has to die.
Yeah. A lot of people, the ICE being in America is a very controversial topic, and there's a lot of different opinions, but I personally feel as though, if you guys just have to be here and, sending people back home, wherever home may be, why does it have to be a violent thing? Exactly. Why do people have to die? Yes. I'm already being put in a very tough situation, a difficult situation, and now you're just, you're killing me off.
Yeah.
Just send me back to where you're going to send me because you've already probably put hardship on my family. Mm-hmm. Now they not only have to have that hardship, but they have to grieve on top of it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And then also once they're putting them in these, I'm going to call them camps, but I think they call them jail, whatever. When they're putting the immigrants in these places, they're also not the cleanest place, or they're saying they're not feeding them. They're saying it's not clean. And like Lady Kai was saying, it's just the way you do things. Send them back. Just do it right. Why do you have to defile them like that?
Yeah, and why are we holding them for so long?
Yeah.
What is the point of that?
Honestly, I feel like it really goes back to them not doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. Judges are being no, what are you doing? Like, you can't just take them, and I feel like they have to wait on a period. They're just not doing it the right way. That's what it comes down to. Because like you said, why do they have to be in that jail cell so long? Why are we waiting?
It almost kind of sounds like slavery without the work.
Yeah. Without,
just holding them up. Or a very heightened prison.
Yeah.
Because the conditions in prison are already not the best.
Right.
And they're essentially treating them like criminals anyway.
Definitely. They are.
Yeah, well, hopefully, we don't have to hear about any more ICE killings. That would be nice, but a part of me almost feels like we are.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like, who's next, unfortunately.
It's like if you breathe wrong, it seems like, oh, she breathed wrong. Let me pull my gun out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just seriously? Trying to live.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, no, seriously, we are going to shoot you. So.
Yeah, it's tough. We need to pray for our nation, guys. We need to pray for our nation.
It's just that we're so split. So it's like, do you guys really want to be prayed for? Do you guys really want to live? Okay.
I don't know.
Let's get right into the Q&A. So on this month's Q&A, we will be discussing how the environment changes the culture.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. And we're going to start off with our first question. Why do you think environmental problems hit some communities harder than others?
Yes. So really quickly, Lady Kai, tell us, why did we get to this? Why are we doing this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I, being a stay-at-home mom, have a little bit too much time on my hands sometimes, which means I watch TV. And my husband actually stumbled across this documentary by Will Smith called Pole to Pole. And basically, he's going to different places from pole to pole and just being a part of their environment and seeing what their culture is like and, why they do the things that they do or how they do the things that they do. And I thought that was very cool and a great conversation for our podcast topic this month.
Yes. Thanks, Lady Kai.
Yeah. I can't remember if I asked the first question already, but I'll ask it again to remind you folks.
Thank you.
What do you think, or why do you think environmental problems hit some communities harder than others?
Yes, I feel like it really goes back to if that community has the resources in order to offset the problems that they're having. It being resources, it being, if I know someone to help me out. And for example, here in Chicago, we get a lot of snow. It just snows, it rains. We get all the seasons, honestly, but we get snow. In certain places in the U.S., it doesn't get a lot of snow as much as here, but sometimes they get snow, even though they're not supposed to. And my example is North Carolina. They definitely do not get snow, but when they do get snow, everything shuts down because they're not prepared. They don't have the resources for it. And they don't have plows to pick up the snow. They don't have salt to get the ice up. And I feel like, well, for me, I'm just very biased because I'm like, that's nothing. Like, it snows here all the time. So I'm always prepared for it, but they're just like, oh, we don't know what's happening. So they shut down.
Yeah, I agree. And you would think that by now, because a lot of these places have been getting snow at least maybe once a year or every other year, that they would kind of be talking about that. If it's a budget thing, that they would be including those in like their budget meetings, or be somewhat prepared by now, especially because this isn't like a now thing. And then you get to a year like this year where there was like a huge snowstorm that hit some of these places, and it's like, well, what do? You know?
They did nothing. Honestly, they shut down. I think the other thing is, it's nice. It sucks for us, but like I said, they'll shut down, so they don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to work. And here, you need to go. Like, the snow is not stopping you.
No.
And then they're kind of sometimes, here I'm talking about in Chicago, they're sometimes bad about not picking up the snow at a certain point in time, like,
or certain neighborhoods. Because if you notice, which is actually kind of coinciding with my response to the question about like wealthier neighborhoods and the resources that they have to recover and stuff. But if you notice, like in lower income communities, the streets are not always plowed right away, as if you go to like a suburban community or something, and their streets are already cleared and stuff like that.
And like you were saying, it goes back to they have the funds for that. I feel like it doesn't have to do with power. They have the funds.
They have the funds, exactly. And, I was also thinking, well, my top 3 for why environmental problems hit some communities harder is because of money for one, because like I said, those wealthier communities have the funds to bounce back quicker and recover, and then power. So some communities don't have the political power to be like, no, don't put that landfill in our neighborhood, or whatever the case may be. And in turn, depending on the location, which is my third point, sometimes the location, you're like by highways or whatever the case, where there's a lot of air pollutants floating around, and that can also cause underlying health issues and stuff like that for nearby residents, which we don't often think about when we talk about environment. So yeah, those are just a couple of my little 1-2 thoughts.
Yes, thanks.
But how does environmental loss affect cultural memory and storytelling?
Yes, so I feel like depending on like where, I'm just gonna give an example. So basically, if we're so used to having this land and we're used to getting certain type of foods off this land, and some odd reason, now we have a drought. Well, then now these resources can't be planted here, and we have to have another way of getting these resources. And it's never the exact same, because, we have to plant this on a different lot of land. It's not as rich as it used to be. And it just changes the direction of how storytelling is going to be told. We don't have to go into the mountains and get this type of food anymore. We actually, not in the mountains, but basically on this certain type of land, we don't make this type of food on this land anymore. We have to make it on this other land. And we lose the storytelling into that. It's a different type of, we don't have to hunt for this anymore. We can actually go in the backyard. So, yeah.
I don't know if I'd be eating animals out my backyard, but vegetables that I grow on my own for sure.
Yes.
But I think that environmental loss affects cultural memory and storytelling, because land isn't just land anymore. It's where these people's story lives. When forest disappears and rivers dry up or neighborhoods get destroyed, people lose places that are tied to their traditions, to their memories and their identity, like who they actually are. And I think about like maybe different stories that people tell about like fishing, and how them going fishing affects, or how that's like their time to bond. Like that's a big family staple for them, how they make their living and stuff like that. But then when the environment begins to change and now there's no more fish, now these people have to figure out like, well, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna make a living, to support my family and stuff like that. And I think that it just kind of changes the trajectory of our stories from these big positive moments to now stories about loss and survival and displacement. Because definitely when the environment changes, the narrative and the memories that you hear associated with that environment changes too.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think about how in Chicago we have a lot of empty lots that used to hold, I'm going to say homes, if it be 2-3 flats or whatever. Honestly, if you didn't live during that time, you don't know what type of home that was. And now you see on the west side all these empty lots, and those places, that land held a lot of traditions, a lot of culture that honestly is lost. Because me personally, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what it was unless I lived around there.
Or you hear the stories that your parents maybe tell you, or your grandparents tell you. And even with stores, not even just homes, those childhood stores that that our parents used to be able to walk to and not fear for their lives, and everybody in the neighborhood knew this kid, and if you did something, I'm gonna tell your mama, or they reprimanded you right there. Like, we just don't have that same, because now people are sensitive about their kids. Don't say nothing to my baby. Okay, will not. But then you on the news talking about he was such a good kid. Well, really? Because I saw Johnny stealing apples from,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. We're gonna keep the train moving. This is a 2-part question, but we'll tackle it one at a time. Do you think culture adapts faster or slower than the environment itself? If yes or no, and why?
Yes, I feel like, honestly, being in the generation, I feel like we adapt faster into the culture, into the climate that we're in. I feel like I'm gonna say Chicago. I feel like Chicago adapts because I was just talking about North Carolina and they closed down. So I'm gonna say for Chicago's people, I feel like we adapt faster to our environments only because of the way Illinois or Chicago is. Like you never know what you're going to. We have an idea, like we're in the wintertime, get prepared for any type of winter. But also sometimes, like we're saying, the climate is changing, and right now it could snow in March. It could snow in April, but we have that climate of we can deal with it. Yes. We don't want to, but we can deal with it.
And I think we also have the mentality of expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
So we're always expecting for something crazy to happen, or 100%. Whatever the case may be. I feel like a lot of cities are kind of bigger cities, I should say, are kind of like that because it's like, you know, in the Midwest specifically, it's like anything can happen.
Literally,
you know?
Anything.
Yeah. And I also think, you know, I agree with you, but I want to also say that I feel like the environment, it changes faster to me than the culture because the environment is always shifting and nature shifts really quickly. Like every day the environment is changing. And whereas we're sometimes really stuck on our routines or like habits that we have, but we don't understand that the culture is built on people. It's built on the habits and the traditions. So those are the things that we're doing. It's shaping the environment, but it's changing it sometimes negatively. And I don't think that we're always prepared for the negativeness. So while we can adapt to it, the environment is changing faster than we can adapt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even though we can adapt fast.
Yeah.
Most places, not all.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on resources and all of that good stuff that we've been talking about.
Yes.
And the second part to this question is, how is climate change altering traditional foods and farming practices?
Yes. So basically, like I was saying earlier, with the climate change, it can affect crops and how we grow certain things. If we have a rain drought or if we have snowstorms, those crops won't either probably grow or grow differently, and or if half of it grows, then we can only sell that amount of crop, and then we only get this amount of money, and then it goes back to the whole, dang, we don't have this power anymore we used to have over this company. We can't give them these type of resources. So it changes the traditions and then how we cook those foods, because actually we can't even cook that anymore. We have to sell it all because we only get half of that product. So it just affects every little thing, the climate.
Totally in agreement. Like climate change is definitely changing what people can grow, you know, how they farm, and that affects the foods that some people grew up with. So because of that, some crops that don't grow well anymore because maybe it's hotter or it's drier or it's flooding more often. And then now in turn, farmers have to try to adapt and try new things to get their harvest because that's their way of living. And that stuff can also slowly change traditional dishes and recipes that people are able to make that are a major part of their culture because those recipes and things are tied to what's grown locally in their community. And then so you know that's my thoughts on that. I feel like it would be hard for me to be a farmer. I'm not gonna lie, because you have to deal with all of these different things, like our land shifting and people trying to find new ways to keep up with their food traditions. Because maybe they can't grow tomatoes this year, but maybe paella is a big one of their dishes, a big part of their tradition, and paella requires a tomato base. So you know that could be difficult.
Yeah, I definitely can.
Now we're going to talk about some fashion. I feel like we've talked about food a lot, but we're going to go to our next question, which is, how is climate change influencing fashion or craftsmanship and materials used in cultural clothing?
Yes, I feel like one big thing is coloring and not trying to preserve type of materials. So a big thing I think they're changing is plant dyes. Instead of just using the more so harsh dyes, they're using what the Lord provided us. Using plant dyes so we can outlast, like basically these materials are going to end up in a landfill. So in order to preserve the land that we're on, let's not use harsh dyes. And and
This question in particular kind of reminds me of like the different ways that people use their recyclable materials, like when Capri Sun, you could recycle your Capri Suns to make like purses or pencil pouches, stuff like that. I always thought that was pretty cool, but I never personally did it, but I thought that was pretty cool. And it also reminds me of like this Aldo bag that I have, and on the side of it, it says this bag was made from like 5 plastic bottles.
Yeah.
So if we can start doing more things like that, but I think it's also challenging. The climate changing is challenging our artsy people. Well, I don't know if y'all like being called that, but I'm just saying people that enjoy arts or fashion and stuff like that, because some materials are not necessarily available anymore.
Yeah.
Due to climate change, so now you're kind of having to think outside of the box or think a little bit harder to be able to produce those different clothing artifacts or whatever it is that you create. And then also with the environment changing, some places are getting hotter. So now we're having to think about, well, what kind of fabrics can I use now? A lot of these fabrics that are made come from plants. Is that plant even still able to grow anymore? Or maybe we have to use a lighter color palette because we know darker colors hold more heat. And, all of those different things play a part into our craftsmanship and stuff like that. And now the big word is sustainable. How can we make this stuff sustainable for the environment? So,
I'm happy they're making changes. I just feel like these changes definitely should have happened 10, 20 years ago. And then we'll have bigger changes now. I feel like there's still small changes. It's not a big effect.
I agree. It's almost like we're trying to play catch up, but we're so far behind that the finish line almost seems impossible to reach.
I agree.
But our last question on this topic today is, why are some cultures more vulnerable to climate change than others?
Yes, I feel like it's rooted into a monopoly effect by the rich and powerful. I feel like they really want to see the less fortunate continue to be less fortunate so they can come in and be a savior, but a savior in the aspect of themselves. They want to come in and change things. They don't want things to remain the same with like traditions and stuff. They want to change those things. They want to come in and make sure they're making money off of these things. And sometimes your traditional ways do not make them money. And they see it more as money opportunity. So, yeah. And I think it definitely does suck. But that's exactly what happens in these less fortunate areas.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also think it's because in some cultures, their way of life is so closely connected to the land, like cultures that like to fish or farming or living in certain landscapes, like maybe they live in a mountainy or a really rocky mountain or a super high altitude of, whatever. And, those all play a part. So when the weather or the environment are changing, it's affecting their daily life, their food, and even some of their traditions that they have. And, it also boils down to some communities just don't have as many resources to support or to adjust. So the changes can feel a little bit heavier than a place that, has more options to maneuver things a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how certain places, you were saying earlier, a lot of, like, if the water is polluted by basically garbage and they can't fish anymore. And it's a lot of places like that in the world. And I just think, like, how? And it's like, that is not us. Like, we wouldn't be able to even live there because our bodies aren't used to that environment.
That stuff,
anyway.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't even be a how. It would be like, we would be dead. Their bodies have adapted to it, unfortunately, but fortunately. But yeah, those are rough areas.
Yes, because everything affects everything. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of us take that bigger picture into consideration. That, like, if there's no fish in this area,
it's just going to migrate.
It's not just there's no fish in this area. Like, the things that depend on that fish in that area die off.
Yeah. And we're all connected at the end of the day. So, like, it'll stop here, it'll stop there, it'll stop there. Like, Antarctica right now, the glaciers are melting. That is not good.
That's not good, which is why our polar bears are like, I need a home.
It affects the wildlife. It all affects everything.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said earlier, we're trying to play catch up with this, but it's almost like we're not going to catch up. If anything, we're just preserving what we already have.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's hard to get everybody on board because it's easy to say, yes, I'll turn the water off when I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
But to actually commit to doing that and breaking those habits that we already have that have such a major effect on our environment is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not just a few people. It's millions of people on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
billions of people on this planet, and all of that plays a part. So
it does. Mm-hmm. One day we won't be as divided, hopefully, and then we can just come together and do what's best for our world.
I agree. Well,
but that's everyone, though.
This has been a great conversation. I did not know that I enjoyed talking about climate change and the environment so much until I got to speak with my girl Jazz about it.
Yes, and we also recommend you guys watch Pole to Pole.
I do recommend that. It's great. It's a great documentary.
Yes.
You know, especially if you like Will Smith, and he's funny sometimes in there. He has little jokes every now and then. But we're gonna switch gears and lighten up the conversation a little bit with our little victories, and we're doing little victories just a little bit different this month. So Jazz, go ahead and enlighten us on what we're doing.
Yes, so our little victories is, what is one Black History victory you have? Lady Kai, you can start.
I will. And mine is a little bit, it's dated, but it's still relevant. But I am going to say Madam C.J. Walker. And for those of you who don't know who she is, she was the first self-made millionaire and first female, actually. And that's important because women, we're coming on up.
Yes, yes.
But she was the first female self-made millionaire in the United States, building a beauty empire and creating opportunities for others. And she was big on hair, and hair is such a major part of the Black community. You know, we're always like, well, what can I do with my hair? Our hair is very versatile. We can do so many different things with it. And I think that's why so many people admire Black hair.
Yes. Or try to, you know, copy Black hair.
Well, they try to copy us in all aspects, not just our hair. But that's another conversation for another day. However, she's just such a major influence to me as well because I love my hair, and I just think about how hair has, for women and men too, because they had their jerry curls and you know, whatever. But for women, like from grandma, her mom, to, you know, my mom, all the way down, and if I happen to ever have a little girl, like, hair is just important. And even though India Ari says I am not my hair, it's still very important. It doesn't define you, but it is very much a part of who we are.
Yes.
And that's, you know, one of our bonding moments, like go to a beauty shop, you're talking, and, you know, all of that stuff. So, you know, and every girl deserves a hot comb experience.
Yes, I agree.
Mine is electric. I don't have the one on the stove, but
yes, I just remember the one on the stove, and ain't nothing like it. It can press it real nice. Yes,
get that hair straight.
Yes, I feel like every Black girl needs to experience that.
Yeah, what they used to say, fried, dyed, and laid to the side.
Yes, that stuff used to be so hot.
I don't think I had too many experiences with it. Maybe only once or twice.
What? Yeah, that's cool.
Well, what's your little victory?
Yes, so my little Black History victory is, okay, so it's Tyler Perry. He's a Black man, if you don't know. Also, he's an actor. Also, you would say he's an actor. No, I'm just playing. He's an actor. He just plays an actress.
I just caught what you did there.
He plays a woman. Her name is Medea. This is crazy. He plays a lot of characters. Also, he's a writer. But anyway, what he did is he bought a Confederate military base, so basically owned by white people, and they wanted to enslave us. And Tyler Perry, a couple of decades later, was like, now we own it. And then a bunch of Black people work here. So shout out to Tyler Perry. Also, this is a side note, I do prefer Tyler Perry's plays over his movies. So, yeah.
I think I like his movies better.
Yeah.
He's been coming out with a couple of bangers lately.
He has. Yeah.
You know, Tyler Perry, he's just one of those creative minds that I always am like, man, how does he come up with this stuff? The amount of movies, plays, TV series that he has is it's just like wow.
And then he still keeps his whole audience engaged, like, and you could be all types of ages as well.
Yeah.
So it's great, and then also so relatable. So
I agree. And with that being said, I'm going to leave you guys with a moment of encouragement. At the end of the day, our environment shapes who we are, and in turn, we shape it too. Every tradition we keep, every story we tell, and every small choice we make is a part of a bigger rhythm, one that connects us to the land, to each other, and to the future. So let's pay attention, stay curious, and do what we can to protect both our planet and the cultures that give it heart. Because when we nurture one, we nurture the other, and that's where the real change begins. And if you want, you can take this and just say that about Black History Month as well. We got to stick together and keep celebrating our victories. Because there's a lot of creations and things that people don't know that came from Black people that they don't tell you about in school. And even though the history books or what's being taught as part of our history is changing a little bit now, for the most part it was so much of what they wanted us to know and not what we actually needed to know.
And that's why it's always best, like, obviously you're not going to learn everything in school, so just go ahead and do your own research. But happy Black History Month, everyone.
Alrighty. So this has been a great conversation, Jazz. I've fully enjoyed you. Please make sure to follow us on YouTube and TikTok at The Lounge Podcast, Sassy and Serious.
And just a reminder that we have monthly episodes. This is The Lounge Podcast, where we keep it sassy
and serious.